Yeah, that's it. A bit like Ken. I love on page 62 of your book, you got Ken here with this huge spreadsheet, and he's sitting there proud, all saying, "Last year I spent $19.50 on hand lotion." Love that one. But
no comment.
Welcome back to What You Will Learn. My name is Adam Ashton.
Hola, hermano y hermanos. My name is Adam. Mate, we just had a phenomenal interview with Scott Pape.
Better known as the Barefoot Investor, author of the book, The Barefoot Investor.
Yep. So if you haven't heard of him, he's one of the leading personal financial experts in Australia. Obviously, author of The Barefoot Investor. He's got a huge following, over 100,000 Australian listeners. If you're from Australia, you've heard him on Channel 7, Triple M, Herald Sun, and his main goal is to empower people to just realise, I've got this, and he is an all-round bloody legend, isn't he?
He is. So his book is currently number one on the Aussie charts. It's been there for 10, 12 weeks, sold 150,000 copies. It's just everywhere, and it's bloody phenomenal. Simple, step-by-step. Check out our episode on it from the weekend.
Yep, that's it. We cover a very wide range of topics. One of my favourites to cover was the topical property market at the moment, ranging from that all the way down to your personal finances and how you can take control of your money.
That's it. Take control and,
I've got
trust in the Barefoot Investor.
Yeah. Thanks, Scott. Welcome to the What You Will Learn podcast. We loved your book, The Barefoot Investor. We read it and reviewed it during the week. We got a lot out of it. Can you start off with just telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got started as the Barefoot Investor?
So I started many years ago. I graduated from university and I went to work at the Australian Stock Exchange, as it was known then, in Sydney. And I went in there, and I'm a country boy at heart from Victoria, from a little place called Oyen. And I kind of realised that I really didn't like the industry that I was getting into. It wasn't a great industry. And from there, I went from the stock exchange and I came back to Melbourne and I worked as a stockbroker. And I sort of didn't really gel with it, and a lot of it was sort of bull dust. So I wanted to do something a little different, and that's what I did. So I started this thing called the Barefoot Investor on the Student Youth Network, which is a little radio station that no one really listened to at the time. And I realised that most of the finance stuff was written for older people, right? And it was either really condescending, so it was really for older people, or it made, it just basically was all this common sense stuff like, cut out your lattes or, wash your windows with freaking, I don't know, potatoes or something. And I was like, try and do something different that just sort of, basically was my view on how to do it. And that's how the Barefoot Investor came to light.
Yeah, awesome. My grandparents are from a farm near Robinvale, so it's close-ish to Oyen.
Nice.
And you said you walked into the stock exchange. You said you didn't quite gel, or didn't quite fit in. What was it? You just knew, or was there something specific about it?
No, I mean, I think as I sort of worked my way through the finance industry, I realised it was pretty sleazy. It's a sleazy industry, and it's designed. If you look at the difference between a low-cost fund in your super and an average fund, which is what most people are on, you're gonna pay nearly $250,000 over your lifetime in fees. And so essentially the banks and the financial institutions have got a vested interest in you not knowing. They're quite happy for you to spend more time thinking about your footy tips than your super, because they're making a shitload of money, And so I looked at it and went, I would rather do something and be fiercely independent. And everyone thought I was a total moron, because there is so much money to be made. As a financial planner, as a financial advisor, there is so much, boatloads of money to be made. Back then there was, because they were still doing all sorts of dodgy stuff like trailing commissions and stuff. I was like, you know what, I actually want to do something that I'll be proud of to help my mates and my family and stuff. And I didn't want to go and chase millionaires. My parents and family, we're all country people, so I want to do something for them. And that's kind of how Barefoot came through. But the reason I didn't gel with it is because I thought most of it was bullshit. to be.
Yeah, just on that,
That's pretty spot on.
what is the biggest piece of bullshit that the financial industry tells us and then that makes us average people believe?
I think the big one is that that they care about your money, and the truth is that I care about my money a lot more than I care about your money.
For sure.
And the truth is that the majority, no one cares about their money more than that person and that family, and therefore there's always a cost to dealing with financial institutions, and they do a good job, but you want to lower that cost because it's really it's quite shocking when you think about it that just by going to work and doing the right thing and just ticking a box that no one thinks about could end up costing you $250,000 over your working life, and that's just in fees. So that's a huge amount of money, given that the average person today retires with about $250,000 or thereabouts. So that's effectively, the money that they're putting into super.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you said you started out after you slowly made your way out. You said you worked for 5 years, but on the side you were sort of building your own little gig. You worked for free, and then you started freelancing, and over 5 years built it up until you could transition to the full-time business.
Yeah.
What sort of stuff were you doing over those 5 years, and what was the tipping point to pull the trigger and say, okay, I can now support myself doing this?
So what I was doing at the start, I was just writing articles. I was doing speeches, free speeches for people, and just giving my view. I was an expert, I'm an expert, a qualified advisor, and I was just helping people. And I would be writing things mainly for free, just to newspapers and all the rest of it. I got approached after I'd started the show. The funny thing was, and you guys do a podcast, right? What I found was really hard was that I would try and get like a suburban, like Daryl from the financial planner from Box Hill, and be like, dude, I'm not going on a Sin FM radio show with you. This is totally lowbrow. No way. I'm like, oh, damn, Daryl doesn't want to go on my show. Right, so maybe I should just ask Sir Richard Branson. He's like, sure, I'll come on your show. Yeah. And I'm like, cool. Okay, so I was fishing in the wrong pond because, those sorts of people are never going to give you a leg up. So what I found is that really successful people were much more likely to give me a go, and they did. And Sir Richard wrote the sort of foreword for my first book, which was sort of unheard of. So I guess for me, what I found was that I was tenacious. My heart was in the right place because I'm like, you know what, this is a really sleazy industry. Everybody's either trying to rip you off and trying to get you to do a financial plan, which they get a certain cut of your money, or alternatively, they're beating you over the head with such mind-numbing stuff like don't drink a latte every day and, just don't ever do anything with your life, have no fun, and then when you're 70, you'll be really happy. Miserable, maybe, but, you'll have a lot of money. So I wanted to write something that was basically, for me and my family and friends. Basically what happened is I got approached to write this book. The book became a bestseller, which amazed my publisher at the time. And then I got picked up by the Herald Sun News Limited, and I started writing a nationally syndicated newspaper column. And then that sort of snowballed, and I started doing some more investment advisory work, and I was doing speeches, and then it sort of just grew from there. But I always had this thing of not being aligned with any financial institution or not taking any fees or anything like that. And that's sort of, people thought I was completely nuts when I did it, but it became it.
Because I'm sure you could have made a lot of money just off having some affiliation with a bank or a fund. I'm sure with that kind of audience, that any of them would love to get in front of it. So what was the reason behind that? Not doing that?
Just because I couldn't look myself in the mirror if I did a deal with a bank, and they've all tried.
Yeah, I'm sure they still are as well.
And even at the moment, like I write about ING in my latest book, and I've never taken a cent from them. I've never, not a footy ticket, nothing. If I go out and talk to them, I'll buy the coffee, just because I think it's such a sleazy industry that you just want somebody to say, you know what, I'm not getting paid anything for this. I'm just giving you the same advice that I give my mate or my mum. And I think that's core to, you can't You can't be going, oh, I'm going to give you this advice. Oh, by the way, these guys are actually paying me
back. Yeah.
No, it just doesn't work.
Just on your book, mate, one of my favourite parts of the book is like how you don't have to budget, because in the last few years I've been trying to count my pennies and do all that kind of stuff. But your book just kind of changed my whole idea about that. If you just automate everything, then you don't have to really think about it, and then you just know in yourself it's all settled. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, so couple of things. Firstly, I would say I help a lot of AFL players, right? And what I found with the AFL players is that they earn a lot of money, right? But they spend a lot of money, right? So they've kind of got, if you think about their money strategy, not all of them, but some of them, they've got a bucket, right? And there's a hole in it, and it just goes straight through, and they can't work out why they don't have any money. But the thing, the sort of the defining principle or moment for me was actually getting married. So my wife, Liz, who I love dearly, is not a finance nerd. Like, she just does not do the whole finance thing. And so I took her out for dinner at the Romsey pub just before we were about to get married, right? And I said, here's how we're going to manage our money. And I actually drew it on the back of a serviette, right? Yeah. So Liz does not do spreadsheets, right? She does not, the only time she's ever gone anywhere near Excel is when she accidentally hit it. You know what I mean? She's like, put it down, stop it right now. So we're kind of different in that way. But what I realized is that if we were going to try and manage our money, I had to keep it really, really simple, because life is really complicated. So basically what we did is we had this 3-bucket approach, which is blow for blow money, grow, and mojo. And I basically said we've got one of 3 options of where we put our money. And that's kind of how we did it. And that's how we do it even today. We don't have credit cards. Out of our blow bucket, we have 3 accounts. One is a splurge account, so we splurge 10% of our money. One is a small account, so for longer term things, if you want to go overseas or something. And then we have what's known as a fire extinguisher, which basically puts out financial fires. So it's a really simple way of doing it. But what I kind of found is that if you automate it all, there's nothing worse than trying to do a budget, because most people, I've never been able to stick to one. I don't have the willpower because I work and I've got kids and stuff. I just never had the willpower. So what I wanted to do was automate it, and that's what the serviette strategy allows you to do.
Yeah, fantastic. I think as hard as you try and plan every expense, there's always going to be things pop up that you weren't expecting.
It's like a diet. I don't know of anyone who can stick to a diet long term. And for me, if I actually had to sit down with my wife and go, let's break out an Excel spreadsheet and budget everything down to like the last dollar, she wouldn't have married me. Like, there's just no one who would have been able to work it out, So it's sort of happy wife, happy life a little bit. And I've taught this to my AFL footballers and stuff, and they kind of get it. And it means that you can go out and get plastered if that's what you want to do. Not that let's do that, because that would be irresponsible. But if there's something that you want to do that makes you feel good, go out. That's why you're working. Go out and have fun, and
for sure,
put some money aside to go overseas, because that's what makes life living. But just make sure that you become conscious about how you're spending your money.
We've danced around a little bit, but so you had your first book that you said went to a bestseller, and this is your brand new one, which was about 3 months old at the moment, and
yes.
It skyrocketed. It was. I see it everywhere. I think it's still number one.
My first book was a bestseller, but the bestseller back then, I don't know how many copies I eventually sold of that first book, but it's nothing compared to what this book has done. So this book, I think, has been has been number one bestseller for 9 weeks on top of the charts, and it's sold well over, I think it's about 150,000 copies now.
Wow. It seems to, over the last couple of weeks, if I've ever said I'm speaking with a Barefoot Investor, everyone I speak to's got a copy, and they said it's how much money they've saved and how easy it is, and so it's fantastic.
Yeah, same. And just on you say how you help a lot of AFL footy players out. Do they have the same good and bad habits, say, as the people who are earning less money?
Sure, of course. Yeah, more money doesn't mean that you're better at managing your money. It just means you've got more temptation. And what I find is that, managing your money, really, it's mainly your behavior, right? So it's that idea, so the idea of the premise of this book, I was never going to write another book. I wrote the first one, it did well. I never thought it would do well, and that's it. And then what happened to me was in 2014, I live on a farm where I'm talking to you from now, and we lost everything. So a bushfire came through. It took absolutely everything. And I remember driving down our road to our house, and I had my wife sitting next to me. I had our little baby boy at the time in the back seat, and seeing everything gone, just literally everything we ever owned was gone. And I remember at that point in time, it was kind of weird and surreal because there was a helicopter, a Channel 7 News helicopter hovering above, taking shots of us because I was on Channel 7 at that time. And my wife was just screaming and my son was screaming. And I thought, you know what? I got this. I can handle this. And for all the years that I'd done from my last book, what I realized is everybody wants to be sort of rich, and they want sort of the 4-hour work week, spray on hair. I can get rich in 2 seconds. Really, when it comes down to it, when you are at your worst, and that was probably the worst point in my life, what you really want is to say, no matter what, I can look after my family. No matter what I have to, I'm going to be okay. Yeah. Because what's true is, and what I found in my life is, you earn more money, but that doesn't mean you're any happier. Because if you earn more money, you just want more money. So for me, this book was about showing people from, guys your age to your parents to your grandparents that everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the basis of the book. It's going to show you how to get wealthy long term, but really it's about safety. And I think from what I went through, that's the most important thing. And that's the same thing for AFL footballers. A lot of them get there and they don't earn a lot of money when they start. But I deal with rookies and I also deal with some of the higher, better known players. And the truth is, they're not there for a long time. It's a really short career and it can stop at any time. So they're dealing with, they don't have a lot of security. So that's what I try and do. I try and set them up.
Yeah, fantastic. It's a powerful opening to the book. And the reason I found out about the book was I think you sent out to the email list that opening chapter in the alpaca story and the bushfire. Man, it was powerful. It was a powerful read. Yeah, all about I've got this. I feel like this book, more so than the original one, is perhaps maybe as you've got older and learned a few different things about what's required financially, that perhaps some of the writing has got older in that we really related to the plant. So the book's written in plant, and then next is grow. So and then harvest. So I feel like some of those grow and harvest is what we're looking forward to. Hopefully, would you say that your audience is getting a little bit older now, or is it? I think it's definitely for everyone.
When I wrote the first book, I was a young guy coming out of the stock exchange out to take on the world. This next book, I've got a wife, I've got a kid. And I'm also, in the time that I've written that, I write 2 newspaper columns in every major newspaper in the country. At the time I worked for Channel 7 nationally, so I've got a very broad audience. And so I've got right now about 18 or 19,000 questions sitting on my email list from people asking me questions. Literally, it is insane. And they range from 7-year-old kids asking about their pocket money to people in their 90s. So I really wanted to write a book that basically helped everyone along. And the common theme is the date night. So it's that idea of saying, you're going to read a book like this, you're going to get inspired, and then you're going to forget about it.
Yep, definitely.
A monthly date night where you get on the fizz, right? So you go out, and I do this with my wife, right? So we go out and we go out to a nice restaurant. She gets dressed up. I comb my hair. So we talk about where our money's going, and we talk about what we want to do and what we want to do with our Smile account and all those things. And it just allows us to actually focus one night a month. And I do that when we've both got alcohol in our hands and garlic bread, and it's a really enjoyable night. We don't talk all about money for the whole night, but it just serves as a focus to actually say, little by little, month by month, over 12 months, we're actually going to get this sorted, and it's really
fantastic.
important.
That sounds awesome.
Mate, just a question on, I'm sure this is going to be a good portion of those thousands of emails that are just sitting there, but if we can get into property, which is very topical in Australia at the moment, and everyone, a lot of my mates, including myself sometimes, we've got this fear of missing out. Everyone's getting these huge returns on property. Is it safe to assume this assumption that property goes up 6 to 8% every year?
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, I write about this in my book, that I think it's total bullshit, really. It's peddled. It's really peddled by property gurus and aided and abetted by banks, and a lot of the media is backed by real estate websites and stuff. So, we've got a generation. If you look back, we've had an uninterrupted economic growth for the last 26 years now. Now we need to. How old are you guys?
24,
26.
There you go. So you've never, since you basically have never seen an economic downturn. Now that kind of lulls us into a false sense of security, right? But if you actually take a step back and you look at it, that is history breaking. There has never been a country, there was Netherlands and they were 25 and a bit, we're now 26, that has had such an uninterrupted economic span of growth ever. Like, this is world beating. We don't have an economic cycle. It's just been growing for 26 years. And what we've seen is more and more money has gone into property. And as more and more money has gone into property, prices have gone up. And really what's happened is our debt levels have gone up. I mean, our household debt household debt to income is the highest it's ever been. It's one of the highest in the world. And so, people think that property just never goes down. Well, yeah, maybe in the last 26 years, but what happens when we do face a recession? And we will eventually. So for me, I'm probably one of the few people that I own multiple properties. I own farms, I own lots of property, but I can also say this is not normal. This is a blip. This is not something that will be sustained.
Absolutely. And you give some ridiculous numbers. If people say, property doubles every 8 to 10 years and you extrapolate that to some ridiculous numbers, and it's obviously unsustainable, isn't it? So,
no, but the truth is that it has happened. Property has doubled every 7 to 10 years over the last 24 to 26 years. And that is true. And for many people, that is a lifetime. That is their whole investment lifetime for the baby boomers. What I'm saying is, if you actually look back and look at it in a historical context, this is an outlier. This whole time in Australia has been one of the most amazing economic growth stories ever in history. And I don't think it's going to be repeated. I wish it was for my kids, but I just don't think it will. So I'm just saying, let's just pour a little bit of common sense on this and say, right now we have got humongous debts at a time when interest rates are at all-time lows. So all I'm saying is just a normal dude going, so we've got record household debts and we've got record low interest rates. What happens when they reverse? Yeah. And my view is that we'll see property prices come down. When that will happen, I do not know. Yeah, I've been wrong for years.
So let's say if what is something, say someone who's young and they've saved up 30, 40 grand or something, and they're about to buy their first property, and they're trying to buy it in St Kilda or whatever, and just buy it to the absolute max. So would you suggest perhaps that's not the best idea, or they can put their money elsewhere?
No, I think that if you can afford a property and you want to live there, I think it's always a good time to buy a house. I know that sounds really weird. I don't think you should overextend yourself. I actually write about that. There are people who are postcode povos, right? So, and I know these people. I write about them in the book. I change their names because it just sort of makes when they come over for dinner really awkward. But they are true. They are real people, and they spend all their money and all their time hoping that they can live by the ocean. And I just find that madness, or St Kilda, or wherever it is. But my personal view is that if you've got enough money to buy a house and you're going to live there for 10 or 20 years, it doesn't really matter what the housing market is going to do.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter because if you can afford it, you buy it, you live there, and it'll be worth more, you know, in 20 years' time than it is now, of course. But what I'm saying is that if you put it off, it's like Warren Buffett says, it's like saving up sex for your old age. It's probably not a good idea. Like if you want to own a house, and I think a house is a terrible investment, right? But it's great to own your own home. It's one of the most proudest things I've ever done. But I just don't think you should put it off because you're waiting for the housing market to crash. Because it may keep going for another 10 or 20 years. I doubt it, but it may. And, you know, if you can afford to buy, you buy.
For sure.
That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I saw your email that came out today, which talked a little bit about the benefits of renting, if renting is a choice, which I liked. Just on the book, you gave basically, if you're a couple, how you can save up your house deposit in 20 months, which is a flawless strategy, makes a lot of sense. I guess my question is that was based on you're in a couple, obviously you're keen to buy a house together, and you're both on an average salary of $80,000 a year. What if you are not at that average salary, or you haven't found your husband or wife yet? What should we start doing today to start, if we want to buy a house? What should we do to start looking towards that?
3 points there. First one is that I actually wrote about there's sort of barefoot case studies, and I've got a girl called Danielle who was a young woman in her late 20s, early 30s, who was single, and she managed to buy her own home. It took her about 6-7 years or thereabouts from sort of start to finish, but she bought her own home, and it was a nice home, like a nice little townhouse. So you can do it, but it's hard. Second thing that I would say is that I write about sort of swinging on the trapeze and doing sort of a side business like I did to earn more income. I mean, the truth is, you know, Joe Hockey was right. You know, if you want to buy a nice house, you've got to get a good job. You know, that's true. You've got to earn more money. So you either do that in your career or you freelance to the point where you can actually earn more money, and then you put it towards a house. But the third thing that I would say is this. There's a lot of people who talk about, and this was the focus of my most recent article, there's a lot of people who get FOMO, right? So fear of missing out. They just want to get on the property ring. So they'll hear these things like being a rent investor, which is like such a totally stupid word. Like it's that I'm going to rent in this nice place, and I'm going to buy in some shithole somewhere as a property investment, and I get to live in, you know, St Kilda, and I'm not going to say where you'll be buying, but you're buying somewhere probably probably somewhere out near my farm, where I live. You know, that to me just doesn't make any sense. I've never seen that actually work out, and I have, again, thousands and thousands of emails in my inbox, and generally what happens is young dude says, I'm going to be a rent investor. I'm going to prove that I can get out and buy a house. So they buy an investment property thinking that in 3 to 5 years' time, the equity in that property is going to go up. I'll pull it out and I'll buy a dream home. Generally what happens is the house ends up costing them, the investment property costs them more than they think, because property generally does that. It doesn't grow as much as you think, because you've got to have stamp duty and all those sorts of things. And then you end up meeting a girl. Girl says, don't want to live in that investment property, want a nice home here. And you're like, hang on, I'm in a bind. I better email Barefoot Investor because my investment property hasn't done anything. It's costing me all this money. I can't save. My girlfriend wants us to, you know, settle down and buy this house. What am I going to do? So my view, again, is that if you're not in the right space, and that could be your job, you don't know where you're going to live. It could be, again, that you haven't found Mr. or Mrs. Right. That's actually not a bad reason not to buy, you know, to not buy a house. And then the third one is if you can't afford it. And if you can't afford it, that's a really good thing. That's a sign of maturity by saying, I'm actually not going to be sucked into the property porn. I must own a home so I can sit at the big people's table at Christmas time. I'm actually going to save. Yeah. And that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, nice. And I think that's totally logical.
Yeah, mate, love it. Hopefully my brother's listening to this. But
Did he actually make the bad decision, or is his girlfriend busting his nuts?
The latter. It's a bit of both, but I hope Jenna's not listening. But,
a bit of both.
but yeah, he's looking to take an equity out and borrow into the max. So, but yeah, switching gears a bit, mate. We got so going from like saving to buy a house. What about the other side of the spectrum? Say if you got someone who's a little bit older or maybe young and they're in 20 or 30 grand credit card debt. First of all, look, I loved in your book, I almost forgot about this character the Commonwealth Bank puts in our schools, Cred, the cool dude who rides a skateboard and, he's absolutely ridiculous, mate.
It is just insane that, Australia's biggest seller of credit cards is also the people teaching you about money in schools. I mean, it's like Ronald McDonald teaching your kids about nutrition. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
They have a vested interest in bringing out, cartoon characters like Cred. And I just think it's completely ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. So what is something someone can do to get out of debt if they've got these spending habits and they're really
the first thing that I always say, I've got this thing called the debt domino, which is basically you take out a piece of paper, you write down your debts, all of your debts, from your mates to credit cards to parking bills to everything, on a piece of paper, and you rank them from the smallest to the largest, right?
Yeah.
And then what you do is you pay the minimums and you pay the smallest one first, and then you celebrate. Yeah. You celebrate actually paying it off, and then you go back and then you get the second biggest debt and then third. And what you're doing is you're building up momentum. And again, in the book, I talk about a mother-daughter combo. The daughter read my book, got out of credit card debt. Then she was talking to her mum about it. Her mum never told her that she actually had thousands of dollars in credit card debt. So then they both did the debt domino together, and each time she paid off a debt, they celebrated, and she became debt-free over a number of years. And that actually became a lifesaver for her because I think it was about 12 months later or thereabouts, she kept saving after she paid off that last debt. And it was like, she's not paying off a credit card. She was saving for herself. She got diagnosed with cancer. And because she had the money there, she could actually pay to get the treatment then and there. So again, my view is that there's like simple tricks, the idea of dominoing your debt smallest to largest. But really what it is, it's about making a stand and saying, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. Yeah. So for me personally, I don't have a credit card. Like I can afford a credit card now, but I don't want it. Yeah. And I think it's just every day on my Facebook page, someone is putting a photo on, uploading it, and we call it plastic surgery. They're doing cutting it up and sharing it. And it's awesome to see because, you're not in financial control if you've got credit card debt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mate, absolutely love it. So, I mean, a very close family member of mine finally cut up that card after about 30 years. So that was huge to see.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I really like that strategy as well. Often we're told to pay the highest interest first, but I like this idea of paying the smallest dollar amount first and building up and getting those wins along the way and building up.
Well, my first book actually, that's the traditional advice, and it does work. But, the truth is that it can be, and this is why debt consolidation is really hard, because to a maths nerd sitting in an office, it actually, in a bank's office, it makes sense to take all your high interest rate debt and roll it all over into a low rate personal loan. The problem is it's like eating an elephant. It's really hard when you see a huge sum. So what you really want to do is get some little wins and celebrate, and it just builds up a momentum. And look, the truth is, I've been doing this for a lot of years now, and I've never had one person come back to me and go, hey, Barefoot Investor, you told me to pay off my credit cards, and it was the worst thing. I look back to my financial plan, and my life just sucked the day I paid off my credit card. Says that because it's like awesome when you do. You go, I don't have to do this. I have to deal with these guys anymore.
Yeah, fantastic.
Incredible stuff, mate.
We'll sort of start to wind down. What does a Barefoot Investor do today? What does your day-to-day look like at the moment?
Do you know, today, I'm just going to give you what I did today. So I'm on the farm. I chased around some sheep because they're getting out the back paddock. That's not a metaphor. That is true. Paddock. And then I had a film crew turn up here, and we're doing a campaign for people who have been affected by natural disasters, so bushfires and floods and stuff, on the importance of credit cards. The importance of insurance.
There was a bit of Freudian slip there.
On credit cards, because when you are in financial strife, the last people that you want to turn to are banks and credit cards. They are not in it for you. So the importance of having insurance, because what we found in Black Saturday is a lot of people just weren't prepared. They didn't have insurance, and it just made everything worse. Yeah. So I did that's what I did all day, basically, doing videos and stuff for them, for the government. We're going to do a launch in about a month on that. But generally speaking, I spend a lot of time. I've got an outsourced team, so a remote team. So we've got staff members all over the world, and I have really great people who work sort of full time for me. They sort of manage a lot of what I do, and it leaves me to help people and to do all the other media stuff that I do. Oh, and actually, so this morning, I was on Triple M with Eddie Maguire doing his money. I do his Monday morning money with Eddie. Yep. Then I went with my son, and we went looking to the butchers for a bone for our dog. Because I got very angry at my dog. I yelled at my dog because the sheep were getting out in the back paddock, and my son said I wasn't being very nice to Betty the sheepdog, who was on the front cover of my book. Yeah. So, and got a bone for Betty, and now I'm talking to you guys. How cool is that? Is that just too granular for you guys?
Mate, that's a good day.
That's a good day.
I'd be happy with that day, definitely.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Unreal, mate. So, yeah, obviously we're a podcast, so you recommend awesome books like yourself. Do you have any books that you recommend to people, other than your own, of course?
Yeah, other than me. I reckon I'm just gonna stop here for a sec. Yep. I'm gonna have a look at my bookshelf. Okay.
Yep. Go for it.
Let me have a look at this. Because the truth is, and we can keep talking about this. The truth is that when the fire came through, I lost over 1,000 books.
Oh.
Because I'm a huge reader.
Big loss.
It is a huge loss. Yeah. So what I'm doing now is I'm going through my Kindle, because that's where all my books are, because I don't tend to do paper books anymore because it's kind of depressing. So my books, the first one that really changed things for me was How Much Is Enough, by a guy by the name of Arun Abay. Now, most authors, make you feel like, especially when you're talking about money and happiness and stuff, let's all sort of sit in a circle and strum a guitar. Arun is now one of my close friends as a process of reading his book years ago. But he's one of the happiest people I know, one of the most fulfilled people I know, and one of the wealthiest dudes I know. So this book is kind of on the fringe, but it's a really awesome book if you've ever, you start earning some money and you're like, well, how much is enough? And the answer is never enough for some. So that would be How Much Is Enough by Arun Abay. Second one would be Tribes by Seth Godin, the master.
He's the man.
We did Tribes about 8 weeks ago. And it was love Tribes, love Seth.
And that's kind of what I've, when he wrote, gave me an endorsement on the book. And that's, because Tribes has had a really big effect on me, because I've really built my tribe, Barefoot Investor, and it ranges from sort of young people to old people, and we're sort of a community that really help people. So Tribes is a big one for anyone wanting to make meaning and purpose. The third one is very, very off the record. Oh, it's not off the record. It's kind of strange. I don't know of anyone that really has read it. It's called The Practicing Mind by Thomas Sterner. It's a really, really weird but awesome book in that it's really practical because it talks about just the art of practicing. And I just found it to be, I don't know, maybe it was just where I needed, you read a book at a certain point in your life and you go, hey, this really works for me. Yep. So I think The Practicing Mind. And the only other one would be Mini Habits by Stephen, I think
Stephen Guys.
I found that to be that idea of just doing sort of, instead of trying to do, 50 sit-ups a day, you do one. And you develop a little habit. And if you could see me in my office now, I've got a wall calendar that I mark off things every day with my writing and with I've just got lots of mini habits. So that would be the books that have really influenced me. But I read all the time, and I always get something out of nearly every book that I read. So
sure. We're actually speaking to Stephen Guys in 2 or 3 weeks.
Awesome.
So looking forward to that one.
I am going to download that podcast.
Awesome. Well, Scott, thank you very much for coming on, and thank you very much for your book, The Barefoot Investor. You said 150,000 copies, and I think that's 150,000 people who are better off financially if they've got 100%. Through it. So thank you very much. Is there anything you want to leave us with?
Yeah, look, I just want to thank you guys for doing this, but also for doing a podcast on these amazing books, because mine's an amazing book, but you're sharing these that you're helping people learn about. It's $29.95 for most books, and there's a few ideas there that can really change things, as you said. So thank you guys. It's been a lot of fun, and I hope to be back on at some stage.
Yeah, fantastic. We'd love to have you, and all the best with whatever comes next.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Scott. See ya.
Hope you guys enjoyed that interview. We got an announcement. We got a special gift for all our listeners.
What you can do, if you head to whatyoullearn.com/notes, we're going to email you a link that goes straight to our notebook, which is the structure we use for all of our book reviews and all the episodes that we've done.
Yep. So it's mine and Adam's, all our notes, all compiled into one big folder. So this is everything that's been on every episode has come from these notes. So you'll find a concise summary, and you'll be able to go through our notes very quickly and very efficiently, get a lot of learnings.
So if you like to read the notes, dot points, as well as either before or after you listen to an episode, head to whatyoullearn.com/notes.
Check it out.